This device is magical in just about every way. Well, it's magical with some limitations, but even with limitations, did ASUS deliver the dream device for mobile productivity and more? We're going to talk about all of that right here, right now on Robeytech. This is the ASUS Zenbook Duo, and it's like the Schrodinger's cat of mobile devices. It's simultaneously a stunning laptop and a transformable tablet-esque device with a detachable keyboard, dual touch screens, a digital pen, portable power brick, and Intel's latest mobile processor line. Now, if you're hearing all of this, seeing the design and thinking, where have I seen this before? You're not crazy, at least not about this. Not only did ASUS release another Zenbook Duo around this time last year, over 12 million of you saw the dual screen Lenovo YogaBook 9i over on the Robeytech Instagram account. While I didn't get as much time with the YogaBook as Roby did, I got the lion's share of hands-on experience with the Zenbook Duo as we were preparing for this review. But before we dive into details, we want to say thank you to ASUS for sending us over the Zenbook Duo for us to check out for this review. Let's get to know it a little bit better, starting with physical dimensions. The Zenbook Duo measures in at just over 12 inches or 313.5 millimeters wide, 8.58 inches or 218 millimeters deep, and 0.78 inches or about 22 millimeters tall, and it weighs around 3.64 pounds or 1.65 kilograms. For context, the ASUS Zenbook Duo is lighter than Roby's 16-inch MacBook Pro M3 Pro that we don't talk about, but it's not quite as thin and light as the aforementioned Lenovo YogaBook 9i, which you can see our review of right over here. Now, what about price? At the time of creating this video, the Zenbook Duo was available in a couple of different configurations, but the one we're talking about today retails for around $1,700. As for CPU, the Zenbook Duo is using the Intel Core i9-285H, the flagship CPU for Intel's 200H series of mobile processors. If you're not familiar with the Core Ultra 200H series, these CPUs are designed to be like a middle ground between ultra-light devices and the more power-focused chips. Because of this balance, the Zenbook Duo is utilizing the 285H's integrated Intel Arc 140T GPU for graphics acceleration. And before you go, just hear me out on this. This is not the integrated graphics you may be thinking about. Well, this iGPU utilizes Intel's Arc Alchemist architecture. This isn't day one mobile Alchemist we're talking about here. The Intel Arc 140T has a new XMX engine to assist in AI workloads, doubled the ray tracing capabilities, doubled the L2 cache, and it has more headroom for performance thanks to the 285H. And speaking of seeing things, the Zenbook Duo has two 14-inch OLED screens with a 3K or 2880 by 1800 resolution and a refresh rate of 120 Hz, which, if I can add some personal commentary here, if this is going to be a resolution that becomes more common in laptops, we really need to decide what we're calling this thing. Like, is it 3K, 2.8K, 1800p, QHD plus Ultra? I don't care what we call it, so long as we call it the same thing. Like, words are very important. Moving on to color reproduction, the Zenbook Duo's screens have a 1:1 million contrast ratio, a color gamut that covers 100% of the DCI P3 color spectrum, and a max HDR brightness of 500 nit. The brightness seems a little bit low compared to other mobile OLEDs we've seen, but it's not dull by any stretch of the imagination. Remember that this thing is trying to balance power and performance here, so having a lower nit display isn't a bad move, and honestly, these displays look amazing. What makes these displays even better is the speakers that they're paired with. They're really good for a laptop of this size thanks to support of Dolby Atmos. Moving on to RAM, the Zenbook Duo comes with 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5x RAM with speeds of just shy of 7,500 megatransfers per second. This RAM is soldered onto the motherboard, which makes it fast, but it also comes with the trade-off that you won't be able to upgrade the RAM or add any later on. Although there doesn't seem to be an option other than 32 gigabytes here, I can't say that I'm really mad at this because we have plenty of RAM for both CPU and GPU to be fed what they need at this point in time. Also, we're seeing this become a trend with both Intel and AMD. Is this a loss for the right to repair? Well, for those of us who like to tinker, it kind of seems like it is, but with how tightly this thing is designed, and let me tell you, this thing, tearing it apart. No, you don't want to do this. This is not a device you want to be poking around with, which is a little bit of a bitter pill with storage as well. The Zenbook Duo comes standard with a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, and unfortunately, there's only one M.2 slot available. And even so, again, we do not recommend DIY upgrading this thing. Like, that process involves removing the entire bottom screen, ribbon cables, the entire main board and everything. It is just not something that you want to get into. But this is where external connectivity comes into play, and the Zenbook Duo does have enough where if you needed to run an external drive, the Thunderbolt 4 ports would have you well taken care of there. That being said, if all your projects you'd use this laptop for live in the cloud, you're in luck, because the Zenbook Duo is Wi-Fi 7 equipped. And since we're talking about wireless features, the Zenbook Duo has Bluetooth 5.4, which is super important for this guy. The wireless keyboard, which I suppose it's like wireless keyboard and touchpad all in one. Whatever you call it, there are actually a couple of things that I really personally love about this thing. When you have the Zenbook Duo in laptop mode, the bottom screen actually serves as a magnetic mount for the keyboard, and it charges while it's there. Or if you need to charge the keyboard via USB, you can do that as well. There's also an on-off switch, so if you're using the Zenbook Duo in tablet mode, with the included ASUS pen, you can set the keyboard aside and not have to worry about battery life. Again, this is more of a personal thing here, but I have hands the size of oven mitts, and even though this is a small device, I never felt like my hands were too cramped on the keyboard. That being said, the print screen button on this thing is so close to the backspace key that I just hit this thing so often that I think the laptop was thinking that I was trying to save my work for posterity's sake. Not the case, but there we go. And rounding out our tour of the Zenbook Duo, we have to talk about battery life and power. For battery, the Zenbook Duo has a 75 watt-hour battery, which is a little bigger than the battery we saw on the Zenbook S13. This is paired with a 65 watt power supply that connects via USB-C, and it's a really nice charger because it's small and light, which is great when you're on the go. The only downside is the cord is a little bit shorter than the average laptop power supply cord. Then again, we've seen some of those cables that just get unwieldy. As for battery life, we got an average of 10 hours and 41 minutes out of the Zenbook Duo using UL Procion's Office Productivity Battery Life Benchmark. When we tested using both screens, the average dropped to around 7 hours. But like any other laptop, your mileage will vary. If you're just using this for office work, this should get you through the better part of a workday on battery. However, if you're doing anything heavier, the time you have on battery will be drastically less. We used the Zenbook Duo around the studio on battery with both screens running, several browser tabs open, reviewing videos, accidentally running a few benchmark tests, and we actually saw closer to 5.5 hours on battery. So again, heavy use will make battery life suffer, but it's not unusual. That's a lot of information about what the Zenbook Duo is, but how does it perform in the day-to-day? Let's start in the place where this device really shines, and that's productivity. When we look at comparisons, the Zenbook Duo's new Core Ultra 9 285H tries to find a seat at the table with its contemporaries, saddling up to the AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX375 and the Intel Core Ultra 7 256V. When we start breaking these numbers out, the 285H is competitive with each of the represented processors. However, it didn't quite reach the Snapdragon X Elite's performance. As for uplift over the previous generation, the closest first-gen Core Ultra comparative data came from one of our favorite laptops of last year, the ASUS ROG Zephyrus G16. The 285H did struggle to keep up with its progenitor, but keep in mind that we could be seeing any number of things impacting these scores, like CPU power profiles, the presence or absence of a discrete GPU, silicon lottery, or hey, the cycle of the moon. Even still, the Zenbook Duo does precisely what it needs to do in applications it's designed to thrive in, and the user experience never felt lacking. But what about gaming? Does the Zenbook's Intel Arc 140T integrated GPU help or hinder this device? Well, at the Zenbook Duo's native 2880 by 1800 resolution and at low settings, we were able to coax an average of 32 frames per second out of Shadow of the Tomb Raider with Cyberpunk 2077, super close at 31.87 frames per second. Forza Horizon 5 averaged around 49.7 frames per second. We averaged around 35.4 in Marvel Rivals, which was actually enough to net us a few wins, and we saw around 30 frames per second in Black Myth Wukong. Now, let's be clear, these aren't titles you'd play on a productivity or business-focused laptop, right? At least this wasn't even a possibility in the recent past. Is 30 frames per second optimal? No. But one could argue that these games are technically playable if you really wanted to. That being said, the Zenbook Duo is perfect for kicking back with some classics as well as fantastic indie titles like Dave the Diver, Dredge, or Sea of Stars, to name a few. Better yet, if you want to zen out on the Zenbook with Stardew Valley on one screen and your favorite second screen show on the other, the experience is absolutely sublime. Moving on to thermals, at idle, the Zenbook's Core Ultra 285H rested at an average of 51 degrees Celsius. Under full CPU load, we saw average temperatures of 75 degrees Celsius. And finally, in our gaming benchmarks, the Zenbook Duo averaged 78 degrees Celsius. Well, what about fan noise? How is this device acoustically? When we look at the numbers, we recorded the Zenbook running at 41.9 decibels while idle, and under load, it only hit 46.2. In other words, it's really quiet. All right, it's time to answer the question, do we recommend the ASUS Zenbook Duo? Short answer, yes, but with some considerations. Overall, there's a lot to love about the Zenbook Duo. The OLED screens are beautiful, the soundscape is great, it has enough power for casual gaming, and battery life is pretty good, all things considered. And if you're someone who does a lot of productivity, video calls, or presentations that require instant access to data, and you need a mobile command center, calling it game-changing seems a little bit too cliche, but this is a device that could really revolutionize your workflow while on the road. And the journey to making this video you're watching was really proof of concept for that. Here's what I mean. When I'm not on site with the Robeytech team, I have a dual monitor setup that I use for writing, video meetings, script and edit reviews, gaming, and more. So when I'm writing scripts like this one, I'll have my main document open on one screen, while on the other I have all of the information I need. So things like product pages, reviewers guides, retail listing, notes from Roby and the team, test data. Yes, I am that guy that has a bazillion browser tabs open. But when I travel, I end up splitting my laptop screen to hold all of that info that I mentioned, and it always feels cramped. Sure, I could invest in a portable monitor, but it would just be one more device to throw into an already overcrowded backpack. And even though the Zenbook Duo has smaller displays than the 16-inch Lenovo Legion Slim 7i I'm using on the regular, I never felt like I was out of screen real estate, which is critical to keeping my creative flow going. Well, that and a good latte too. Now, I've been very intentional throughout this video to not call this a laptop, because the Zenbook Duo falls into this odd in-between space where it looks like a laptop, it feels like a laptop, and works like a laptop, but its killer feature makes this thing a lot more like a tablet than just a laptop. In other words, having the dual screens is amazing if you have a place to set it up, and I don't know what your experience is trying to use a laptop while in flight, but the tray tables in economy just don't have a generous economy of space to set up a laptop like this. The only other downsides that we see with the Zenbook Duo is that this thing is limited when it comes to storage space. Having that only a 1 terabyte drive in this device seems a little bit limited, and also you will need professional help if you are ever considering that as an upgrade. But let's be honest, at this point, I'm really trying to find negatives about this thing, because our experience with the Zenbook Duo was just overwhelmingly positive. The bottom line is that if you travel for work and need a dual screen setup with some extra oomph for gaming on the go, the Zenbook Duo is pretty magical. And with that, we're gonna wrap up our review on the ASUS Zenbook Duo, but we wanna know what you think. If you travel for work, how would you use a device like this? And what features do you wish the Zenbook Duo had? let us know in the comments below. And while you're down there, go ahead and slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this one right here on Robeytech. And if you want to continue the conversation, talk about the questions that we ask in videos like these, or ask questions of your own, head over to our Discord, discord.gg/Robeytech. Amazing place to talk to other tech and PC enthusiasts about stuff like this. And hey, you know what? While you're there, you might even make a friend. Also, make sure you follow us on Robeytech on all of your favorite social media platforms. And if you made it this far in the video, I want to say a huge thank you for sticking around, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.